funny thing about warnings, the real ones don't come with sirens. They arrive quietly, almost politely, while you're still laughing at the idea that anything could go wrong. You wake up thinking you've got time, that Monday is just another reset, another chance to pretend nothing needs to change. But something's already moving, already decided, already closer than you think. This isn't about panic, it's about timing. Because by the time the world switches back to routine, whatever you ignored will be standing right in front of you, smiling, waiting for you to realize you should have listened when the warning was still whispering. Instead of laughing out loud, silent warning signs never scream. They don't beg for attention or shake you by the shoulders. They just sit there, subtle and patient, watching you move past them like you always do. You're trained to respond to noise, to urgency, to chaos. Silence doesn't register as danger to you. Silence feels safe, comfortable, manageable. And that's exactly why it works. The first sign is always easy to ignore because it looks harmless. A strange hesitation before doing something you've done 1,000 times. A sudden loss of interest in things that used to distract you. A quiet thought that slips in and leaves before you can question it. You brush it off. You always do. You tell yourself you're tired, bored, overthinking. You've got excuses lined up like a well-rehearsed routine. Silence doesn't argue with your excuses. It lets you keep them. Then the signs start stacking. Not louder, just closer together. Little disruptions in your rhythm. Sleep that doesn't feel like rest. Laughter that feels slightly forced. A sense that time is moving faster than usual, like you skipped a page and don't know how. Nothing breaks. Nothing explodes. That's the trick. You keep waiting for proof, something dramatic enough to justify concern. But silent warnings don't offer proof. They offer patterns. Your instincts notice before your mind does. That's why you feel uneasy without a reason. Your body tightens in moments that shouldn't matter. Your attention drifts toward thoughts you don't want to entertain. You feel watched by consequences that haven't arrived yet. And instead of listening, you drown it out with noise, work, screens, conversations that don't mean anything. Noise feels productive. Silence feels suspicious. The warning signs don't chase you. They don't need to. They trust your habits. They know you'll keep moving forward out of momentum, not direction. You mistake motion for progress. You think as long as you're busy, you're safe. But busy minds miss quiet truths. And these truths are designed to be missed until it's inconvenient. You start getting chances to pause, moments where life slows just enough for you to notice something's off. But pausing feels dangerous to you. Pausing means thinking. Thinking means confronting. So you keep going. You keep telling yourself Monday will fix it. A new week, a fresh start, as if calendars have ever saved anyone. The silence grows heavier, not louder. It shows up as a gut feeling you can't explain, as a sense that you're late for something you can't name. You replay conversations after they end, wondering why certain words stuck. You feel resistance toward things that used to feel automatic. That resistance isn't laziness. It's friction, and friction only exists when something is pushing back. You've ignored warnings before and survived. That's why you're confident now. You confuse survival with success. You think just because you made it through the last time, you'll make it through again. You forget what it cost you. You forget what you lost quietly while celebrating the fact that you didn't collapse. Silent warnings don't threaten your life. They threaten your comfort. And comfort is the thing you protect the most. There's a moment when the signs become unavoidable, not because they change, but because you do. Your tolerance drops. Your patience thins. The distractions stop working the way they used to. You feel exposed in your own routine, like something's about to be revealed that you didn't prepare for. That's when you feel the urge to check the time, to calculate how much room you still have before everything shifts. The warning was never meant to scare you. It was meant to prepare you. But preparation requires acknowledgement, and acknowledgement requires humility, admitting that something might be wrong before it proves it to you. That's hard, harder than reacting after damage is done. Silence gives you the option to act early. You just don't like that option because it doesn't come with adrenaline. By the time people say they never saw it coming, the signs have already done their job. They spoke. They waited. They watched you choose comfort over awareness again and again. Silence isn't absence. It's restraint. It's danger with manners. And the most dangerous warnings are the ones that arrive without pressure, without deadlines, without drama, giving you just enough space to ignore them while they quietly count down, knowing that once the noise finally arrives, it won't be a warning anymore. It'll be a reminder that the silence tried to reach you long before you decided to listen. Time never announces it's running out. It just starts behaving differently. Minutes slip past without leaving a mark. Hours collapse into each other. You look up and realize the day's already gone, and you can't remember what you actually did with it. That's not laziness, that's erosion. Time doesn't steal loudly. It dissolves things while you're distracted, convincing you there's always more waiting tomorrow. You tell yourself you'll handle it later because later feels infinite when you don't look at it too closely. Monday feels far away, like a concept instead of a deadline. You count on routines to reset you, as if repeating the same cycle magically changes the outcome. Time loves routines. Routines make people predictable. Predictable people don't notice clocks speeding up around them. You start measuring life in shortcuts. Just one more scroll, just one more episode, just one more excuse. Each one feels harmless on its own. Together, they drain entire days without leaving evidence. You're not wasting time in obvious ways. You're leaking it. And leaks are dangerous because they don't trigger alarms until the pressure's already gone. There's a strange calm when time is running out. Panic hasn't arrived yet. Consequences haven't shown their face. Everything looks normal enough to justify doing nothing. That calm is deceptive. It's the quiet before urgency becomes unavoidable. You mistake the absence of pressure for the presence of safety, forgetting that deadlines don't need to shout to be real. You feel the acceleration in subtle ways. Conversations feel rushed, even when no one's hurrying you. Decisions feel heavier because there's less room to undo them. You feel behind without knowing what you're behind on. That's time compressing. It squeezes options until choices become reactions instead of decisions. You promise yourself you'll act when it feels serious, when the moment is right, when motivation shows up. Time doesn't wait for motivation. It waits for action. And the longer you delay, the fewer versions of action remain available. You don't lose time all at once. You lose possibilities. And once possibilities are gone, effort increases while outcomes shrink. You've survived last-minute pressure before. That's why you trust it. You think you perform better under stress. You confuse adrenaline with efficiency. What you don't notice is how much damage you normalize in the process. Sleep sacrificed, focus shattered, relationships neglected. You call it productivity because it gets results fast, not because it's sustainable. Time running out doesn't feel like urgency at first. It feels like resistance. Tasks that should be simple suddenly feel heavy. Focus slips faster. Small problems demand more energy. That's not you failing. That's time narrowing the margin for error. The closer the deadline gets, the more expensive every mistake becomes. You keep checking the clock without really reading it. You see the numbers, but not the meaning. You tell yourself there's still enough left to turn things around, without defining what enough actually means. Time loves vague plans. Vague plans give it room to disappear unnoticed. There's a point where time stops feeling flexible. That's when options harden, when choices you could have made freely now require sacrifices, when preparation turns into damage control. That shift doesn't happen suddenly. It creeps in while you're negotiating with yourself, while you're waiting to feel ready instead of acting while you're uncertain. You don't notice time running out because it doesn't feel hostile, it feels indifferent. It keeps moving whether you move with it or not. It doesn't punish delay immediately. It just recalculates what's possible based on how long you hesitated. And when you finally look up and realize how close you are to the edge, the distance behind you feels much larger than the distance ahead. Time doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't respond to excuses or plans you didn't start. It only reacts to what you actually did. And by the time urgency becomes obvious, time has already decided what it's willing to give you back. Comfort is the most convincing lie you've ever believed. It doesn't threaten you, doesn't rush you, doesn't demand anything. It wraps itself around your routine and tells you everything's fine exactly the way it is. You wake up, repeat the same motions, hear the same excuses in your head, and because nothing hurts right now, you assume nothing's wrong. That's how comfort works. It sedates you before the fall. Collapse never starts with chaos. It starts with ease, with things feeling just stable enough that you stop checking the foundation. You stop questioning habits that no longer serve you because they're familiar. Familiar feels safe. Safe feels smart. You convince yourself that discomfort is unnecessary, that struggle is optional, that you've earned this calm. But calm without awareness isn't peace. It's pause before impact. You mistake stillness for control. As long as nothing's breaking, you assume nothing's failing. But decay doesn't make noise. It works slowly, politely, behind closed doors. Your standards lower a little. Your urgency fades. You tolerate things you once would have fixed immediately, not because you don't see the problem, but because addressing it would disturb your comfort. And comfort always negotiates with consequences on your behalf. You start choosing the easy option without realizing it's becoming the only option. You delay conversation. You postpone decisions. You ignore instincts that whisper something's off. There's always tomorrow, right? Comfort loves tomorrow. Tomorrow keeps you relaxed today. And while you wait, pressure builds quietly, invisibly, until the structure you're standing on can't hold your weight anymore. Nothing feels wrong until everything does. That's the trap. You laugh, you scroll, you distract yourself just enough to stay numb. Comfort keeps you entertained while your awareness dulls. You're not failing dramatically. You're fading efficiently, and because there's no crisis, you feel justified in doing nothing. Collapse doesn't need drama when it has complacency. You trust comfort because it's familiar. You've survived this way before. You tell yourself this is balance, but balance requires tension. Remove the tension and the system weakens. Muscles don't grow in comfort. Minds don't sharpen there. Discipline doesn't live there. Comfort is a holding pattern disguised as stability. You stop preparing because preparation feels unnecessary when everything seems under control. You stop sharpening skills because they still work well enough. You stop asking hard questions because the answers might require action. Comfort convinces you that maintenance is optional. It isn't. It's just invisible until it's too late. The scariest part is how reasonable it all sounds. You're not making reckless choices. You're making comfortable ones. You're not ignoring reality. You're postponing it. You're not avoiding responsibility. You're spreading it out so thin it barely registers. And because nothing explodes immediately, you assume you're right. Then cracks appear. Small ones, easy to patch over with excuses. You blame timing, stress, other people. Anything but the truth that you've been standing still while pressure was stacking up. Comfort doesn't prepare you for pressure. It weakens your tolerance for it. So when the first real hit comes, it feels disproportionate, unfair, sudden. You ask how it happened so fast. It didn't. It happened quietly while you were comfortable, while you chose rest over readiness, while you mistook peace for progress. Collapse feels sudden only to those who stop paying attention early. Comfort dulls your reflexes. It slows your reactions. It makes you negotiate with warning signs instead of responding to them. By the time discomfort finally shows up, it's no longer a signal. It's a consequence. And consequences don't care how comfortable you were before they arrived. You don't lose everything at once. You lose leverage first, options, flexibility, then momentum, then confidence. Collapse isn't a single moment. It's a sequence you agreed to, one comfortable choice at a time. You didn't fall, you settled. And the worst part is you felt smart doing it. You felt calm. You felt in control. That's why comfort is so dangerous. It never feels like the enemy. It feels like a reward until the structure underneath gives way. and you realize the comfort you protected was built on neglect, avoidance, and delay. And now you're standing in the space where preparation should have been, wondering how stability turned into silence, how ease turned into pressure, how everything felt fine right up until the moment it wasn't, right up until the ground shifted without warning, right up until comfort stepped aside and let collapse finish what it patiently waited to begin. Instincts are inconvenient. They don't show up when it's comfortable, and they never care about your plan. They interrupt you at the worst times, whispering things you don't want to hear while you're busy convincing yourself everything's under control. You felt it early on, that tight feeling in your chest, that pause before saying yes, that urge to step back when you stepped forward anyway. You noticed it. You just didn't respect it. You told yourself instincts are emotional, unreliable, dramatic. You trusted logic instead, because logic lets you justify anything if you talk long enough. Instinct doesn't argue. It doesn't explain itself. It just signals and waits. And when you ignore it once and nothing bad happens, you feel validated. You do it again and again. Each time it gets quieter, not because it's wrong, but because you're teaching yourself not to listen. Ignored instincts don't disappear. They archive themselves. They store information. They remember patterns, even when you pretend not to. That's why one day you feel uneasy for no clear reason. Your mind can't trace it, but your instincts already connected the dots weeks ago. They saw the repetition, the inconsistency, the subtle warning signs you rationalized away. Instincts work faster than thought and deeper than logic. You mistake calm for safety. Your instincts don't. They notice tone shifts, timing, the way something almost fits but doesn't quite align. They register danger long before it looks like danger. But danger doesn't always look like threat. Sometimes it looks like opportunity with bad timing, or familiarity wearing the wrong intention. You ignored the hesitation because moving forward felt easier than stopping to question things. You ignored the discomfort because acknowledging it would have required change. Instincts often ask for action without giving reassurance. They don't promise a better outcome. They only warn you about the current direction. And when you're invested, when you've already committed emotionally, financially, mentally, that warning feels like sabotage instead of protection. Every time you silence your instincts, you weaken your trust in yourself. Not immediately. Gradually, you start second-guessing your reactions. You outsource your judgment. You ask everyone else what they think instead of asking yourself why you feel off. You train yourself to doubt the one system designed to keep you alert when information is incomplete. Ignored instincts don't punish you instantly. That's why they're easy to dismiss. Consequences arrive later, disguised as bad luck, coincidence, or sudden collapse. You say you never saw it coming. That's the lie you tell to stay comfortable. You saw it. You felt it. You just chose convenience over clarity. Your instincts warned you in subtle ways. Through tension, through restlessness, through that urge to leave early, or stay silent, or say no without being able to explain why. You overrode it because explanations matter more to you than outcomes. Instinct doesn't care if you can justify it. It cares if you're paying attention. There's a moment when instincts stop whispering and start screaming, but by then it's usually too late. That scream feels like anxiety, dread, panic. You think something's wrong with you. There isn't. Something's wrong with the situation you ignored too long. Instincts escalate when they're cornered. They don't want to be dramatic. They want to be heard. You remember the first time you felt it and brushed it off. That moment comes back with clarity when things start falling apart. You replay it, wishing you had trusted yourself when the cost was smaller. Ignored instincts always invoice later with interest. And the payment isn't just external damage, it's internal. Confidence erodes, self-trust fractures. You hesitate more next time, not because you're cautious, but because you're unsure which voice inside you is real anymore. Instincts aren't fear. Fear is loud and chaotic. Instinct is precise. It shows up calmly and leaves quietly if dismissed. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It waits for consequences to prove it right. And when it does, it doesn't celebrate. It just goes silent again. knowing you'll remember this feeling the next time it tries to warn you. Ignoring instincts isn't a single decision, it's a habit, a pattern of choosing comfort, approval, and momentum over inner alignment. You don't lose your instincts, you lose your willingness to trust them. And once that trust is gone, you rely on systems that react slower, think louder, and arrive late to situations your instincts tried to save you from early on, long before damage was visible, long before explanations were necessary, long before Monday morning arrived with consequences that felt sudden only because you stopped listening when your instincts first leaned in quietly and tried to get your attention. Delay feels harmless because it pretends to be thoughtful. It tells you you're being careful, strategic, patient. It disguises itself as planning while quietly stealing your momentum. You don't notice the damage at first, because nothing explodes when you wait. Life doesn't punish hesitation immediately. It just starts adjusting the cost behind your back. The first consequence is subtle. Options shrink, not disappear, shrink. What once had 10 possible moves now has 6. You don't feel trapped yet, so you stay calm. You tell yourself you'll decide when it's clear. But clarity doesn't arrive when you wait. It arrives when you move. Delay starves clarity and feeds uncertainty. You convince yourself you're avoiding mistakes. What you're really avoiding is discomfort. Action always comes with risk, and risk makes you visible. Delay keeps you hidden. It lets you stay in the shadows where nothing can judge you, fail you, or expose you. But shadows don't protect you forever. They just make the fall harder to track when it finally happens. Time doesn't pause while you think. It keeps negotiating without you. While you wait, circumstances change, people change, windows close quietly. You come back ready to act and realize the situation isn't the same one you delayed in. The rules have shifted. The leverage is gone. You didn't miss the moment because you were lazy. You missed it because you were waiting for certainty in a world that only rewards movement. Delay trains your mind to tolerate discomfort without resolving it. You get used to carrying unfinished decisions, unsent messages, unmade calls, unchosen paths. That mental weight builds. You call it stress. You blame external pressure, but most of it comes from choices you postponed that are now rotting quietly in the background, demanding attention without offering solutions. Another consequence shows up in your confidence. Every time you delay, you teach yourself that you don't trust your own judgment. You second-guess instincts. You overanalyze. You look for permission instead of direction. Over time, decisions feel heavier, not because they're more important, but because you've weakened the muscle responsible for making them. People mistake delay for patience. They're not the same. Patience has intention. Delay has avoidance. Patience moves with time. Delay hides behind it. And time knows the difference. It rewards those who engage with it and penalizes those who wait for it to behave. You start living in reaction instead of intention. Because when you delay long enough, choices get made for you by deadlines, by other people, by consequences. You lose the luxury of deciding how things unfold and settle for managing how they collapse or solidify without your input. Delay also distorts risk. The longer you wait, the risk doesn't disappear, it compounds. What was once a simple conversation becomes a confrontation. What was once a small adjustment becomes a major overhaul. What was once reversible becomes permanent. Delay doesn't remove danger. It concentrates it. You tell yourself you'll act when the pressure is real. Pressure doesn't motivate clean action. It forces rushed decisions. It pushes you into corners where your values compete with survival. You don't choose what's right. You choose what's left. And then you call it fate to avoid admitting you postponed responsibility until it cornered you. The worst consequence of delay isn't external. It's internal erosion. You stop trusting timing. You stop believing you can change things early. You start normalizing last-minute stress, calling it how you operate best. You don't. You just learned how to function while constantly behind. Delay creates a false sense of safety. As long as nothing has happened yet, you feel protected. But safety based on inaction is fragile. It collapses the moment reality demands a response. And when that happens, you're not prepared. You're scrambling, explaining, defending choices you never actually made. You look back and say you would have done things differently if you knew then what you know now. That's not true. You knew enough then. You just didn't want to act with incomplete information. You wanted guarantees. Guarantees don't exist. There's only timing and courage, and delay robs you of both. Consequences of delay don't arrive loudly. They arrive as limitations, as fewer paths, as heavier costs, as missed alignments, as pressure you swear came out of nowhere. They arrive on schedule, just not on yours. And when they do, they don't care why you waited. They only respond to the fact that you did, closing doors you assumed would stay open, changing terms you thought were fixed, forcing action at the worst possible moment, proving that waiting didn't keep you safe. It just handed control to time and walked away while the bill kept. Growing quietly in your name control is a comforting illusion. It makes you feel steady while everything underneath is shifting. You plan, you organize, you predict outcomes. And because things haven't collapsed yet, you assume you're in charge. That's the trap. Control doesn't disappear when it's false. It feels strongest right before it fails. You tell yourself you've got time, options, backup plans. You convince yourself that if something goes wrong, you'll handle it when it happens. That belief keeps you calm. Too calm. It dulls your urgency. You stop preparing because preparation feels unnecessary when you think you're steering the wheel. You forget that roads change even when your hands don't move. False control thrives on familiarity. As long as things look the same, you assume they are the same. Same job, same people, same routines, same excuses. You mistake repetition for stability. You forget that systems rot quietly. They don't announce breakdowns. They wait until pressure is applied. You rely on past success to justify present inaction. It worked before, so it'll work again. You survived worse, so this isn't serious. You confuse resilience with invincibility. Resilience helps you recover. It doesn't prevent impact. And false control convinces you that recovery is optional because failure isn't coming. You manage symptoms instead of causes. You adjust small things to feel productive without addressing the core issue. A schedule tweak, a temporary fix. A promise to yourself that you'll take it seriously later. Control loves patches. It hates foundation. Foundations require disruption. And disruption threatens the image you've built of having everything handled. You stop listening to warning signs because they don't fit your narrative. If you're in control, nothing should feel off. So when it does, you rationalize it away. Stress, fatigue, bad timing. You reinterpret signals as inconveniences instead of indicators. Control doesn't like being questioned. It prefers agreement. There's comfort in believing you're choosing this pace, that the pressure is manageable, that the limits are self-imposed. It makes you feel powerful, but power built on denial collapses fast. When reality finally pushes back, it doesn't negotiate with your perception. It responds to conditions, not confidence. False control keeps you busy. Busy feels like movement. Movement feels like progress. But motion without direction just burns energy. You're doing things, but not the right ones. You're active, but not effective. Control convinces you that effort alone equals mastery. It doesn't. Alignment does. You underestimate external variables, other people's decisions, timing shifts, market changes, emotional reactions. You assume you'll adapt quickly because you always have. But adaptation requires margin. False control eats margin. It uses it up while you're calm, leaving you with no room to maneuver when things tighten. The most dangerous part is how logical it sounds. You're not reckless, you're organized, you're composed, you're measured. From the outside, it looks responsible. Inside, it's rigid. You've locked into a version of reality that requires things to stay predictable. Reality doesn't care. When the first real disruption hits, it feels unfair. You did everything right. You planned. You stayed calm. You trusted the process. That's when you realize control wasn't protection. It was avoidance with structure. You weren't preparing for impact. You were assuming it wouldn't happen. False control delays action until urgency forces it. By then, options are limited. Decisions are rushed. You react instead of choose, and the confidence you had before doesn't help you now. It disappears under pressure because it was never tested. It was sheltered. You don't lose control suddenly. You realize you never had it. What you had was a narrow window where nothing challenged your assumptions. That window closes without warning, and when it does, you feel exposed, overextended, unprepared. Control isn't about holding everything steady. It's about knowing what can move and adjusting early. False control ignores movement until it becomes impact. It teaches you to trust systems instead of signals, routines instead of reality, comfort instead of readiness. You tell yourself you'll regain control once things settle. They won't. They never do. Stability after disruption requires adaptation, not reassurance, and adaptation requires admitting you weren't in control to begin with. The illusion breaks quietly at first. Small failures, missed cues, unexpected resistance, you brush them off, then they stack, then they demand attention, and suddenly the calm you relied on becomes the reason you're behind. Because while you were busy feeling in control, reality was busy changing the rules. Without asking your permission, waiting patiently for the moment you'd realize that control was never something you owned, only something you assumed. And assumptions are fragile things. When pressure finally arrives and asks you to prove them, there's a moment right before impact that most people never recognize until it's gone. It's quiet, almost polite. Everything looks normal enough to convince you that nothing serious is about to happen. That's the part that fools you. Impact doesn't announce itself with chaos. It lets you relax first. It gives you just enough calm to lower your guard. You feel it as a pause in momentum, like the air thickened slightly. Conversations slow down. Decisions feel heavier than they should. You hesitate without knowing why. That hesitation isn't weakness. It's awareness trying to surface before it gets buried again. Your mind senses the shift, but your habits are louder, and habits hate interruptions. Right before impact, you feel unusually confident or unusually calm. Either one is dangerous. Confidence tells you you've handled worse. Calm tells you there's nothing to worry about. Both keep you from adjusting. Impact loves people who don't move because they think standing still is stability. You replay recent choices in your head, not critically, just casually. Did I miss something? Did I forget something? The questions drift by without landing. You don't sit with them because sitting would slow you down. And slowing down feels like falling behind. So you keep moving forward, trusting momentum instead of direction. There's often a strange clarity mixed with denial. You see the signs but downplay their importance. You sense tension but label it stress. You notice resistance but call it fatigue. The mind is incredible at translating danger into inconvenience when acknowledging danger would require action. People around you might even say things that should stop you. Small comments, offhand warnings, changes in tone. You register them but don't react. You assume you'll deal with it later, when it's clearer, when it's more obvious. Impact doesn't wait for obvious. It waits for commitment. Once you're committed to continuing as you are, it moves in. The moment before impact is filled with options you don't take, messages you don't send, boundaries you don't reinforce, questions you don't ask. You tell yourself it's not the right time. That waiting feels responsible. It isn't. It's hesitation disguised as maturity. Your instincts start speaking louder here, but not in words. Through tension, through restlessness, through that urge to pause and reassess that you ignore, because reassessment threatens your timeline. You've already invested time, effort, identity. Turning back feels like failure, so you lean forward instead. Right before impact, you feel strangely detached. Like you're watching yourself from a distance. You're aware something's off, but you don't feel urgency. That detachment is the mind protecting itself from what it senses is coming. It dulls emotion so you can keep functioning, even if functioning is leading you straight into the collision. You convince yourself that if something were truly wrong, it would feel louder, more dramatic, more obvious. But impact doesn't need volume. It needs positioning, and you're already in the right place for it to land. There's often a final chance to adjust, a small decision that could change the angle. A moment where listening would cost you pride but save you damage. That moment passes quickly because it doesn't demand attention, it offers it. And offered attention is easy to refuse. The moment before impact feels like control because nothing has broken yet. You mistake intact surroundings for safety. You forget that impact is about force meeting resistance, not about visible damage. The force is already moving. The resistance is already set. The collision just hasn't happened yet. You don't brace because you don't know what direction it's coming from. You assume it'll hit someone else. Or later. Or not at all. You've been wrong before and survived. So you trust survival instead of awareness. Survival teaches bad lessons when it goes unchecked. Right before impact, time feels slightly distorted, either stretched or compressed. You feel late and early at the same time. You feel pressure without urgency, calm without peace. That contradiction is the signal most people miss. When the impact finally comes, everyone says it was sudden, that it came out of nowhere, that there was no warning. But there was a moment, a clear one, quiet enough to ignore, subtle enough to dismiss, heavy enough to change everything if you had respected it. The moment before impact isn't dramatic, it's ordinary. That's why it works. It looks like another step in the same direction, another day in the same routine, another choice that doesn't seem to matter. And because it doesn't look dangerous, you don't change course, you don't slow down, you don't question the ground you're standing on. You just keep moving forward into the space, where consequence is already waiting, perfectly timed, perfectly positioned, ready to do what moments never do, but impacts always finish. People love to talk about progress like it's some neat little staircase, a straight shot to success. They think if they just do this and avoid that, they'll move forward, no questions asked. But progress, real progress, doesn't work like that. No, it's messy, it's unpredictable, it's a game that doesn't play fair. And the best part? Most people don't even realize they're the ones rigging it against themselves. People like to think progress is some magical feeling, something that just happens when they're in the right mood, when the stars align, when the universe decides to sprinkle a little bit of motivation into their empty little lives. They think if they just wait long enough, one day they'll wake up inspired, ready, hungry for change. But that's the lie they tell themselves, because the truth, the ugly, uncomfortable truth, is that progress doesn't give a damn about motivation. See, motivation is cute. It's fun. It's that little rush you get when you watch an inspiring video or read some deep quote or tell yourself, this time I'll be different. It's that fleeting little spark, that sugar rush for the soul that makes people feel like they're ready to change, but it never lasts. Oh, no. It burns out the second things get hard, the moment reality shows up and smacks them in the face. That motivation? Gone, just like that. And then what? Oh, that's when the excuses start. I just don't feel like it today. I'll start tomorrow. Maybe next week will be better. I'll wait until I'm in the right mindset. And before they know it, a day turns into a week into a month into a whole damn year, and nothing's changed. Not because they couldn't change, but because they were too busy waiting for some magical force to push them forward. But that's not how progress works. Oh, no. Progress doesn't care if you feel like it. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It's there every day, daring you to move, daring you to show up, even when you're tired, even when you're uninspired, even when you'd rather do anything else. But most people, they can't handle that. They want it to be easy. They want it to feel good. They want to enjoy the process. And the second it stops being fun, the second it starts getting hard, they back out. They convince themselves it's not the right time, not the right energy, not the right circumstances. But the truth, it was never about circumstances. It was always about discipline. Discipline is what separates the people who talk about progress from the ones who actually make it. Discipline is what gets you up when you don't want to move. Discipline is what keeps you going when you're frustrated, exhausted, and ready to quit. Discipline is what forces you to act, no matter how you feel. And that's the part people hate. Because discipline, it's boring. It's not flashy. It's not fun. It doesn't give you that little motivational high. It's just work. Over and over. No applause, no instant rewards, no quick results. Just you grinding away in the dark while the rest of the world sits around waiting for motivation to magically strike. And that's the joke, isn't it? That people spend their whole lives looking for an easy way to get better when the answer was right in front of them all along. They don't need more inspiration, they don't need more motivation, they just need to do the damn work. Every day, whether they feel like it or not. People love to talk about making big moves, grand gestures, the kind of changes that turn heads, that make people stop and say, wow, look at them go. They want the overnight transformation, the dramatic before and after story, the kind of progress that looks good on a highlight reel. But here's the problem. Real progress, it's never loud. It's never flashy. It's never some giant leap that happens all at once. No. Real progress, it's small, it's quiet, it's boring, and that's why most people never stick with it. See, everyone's looking for one big step that changes everything. The magic switch, the shortcut, the secret trick that makes success easy. They want to wake up one day and suddenly be different, suddenly have it all figured out. But that's not how it works, is it? No, the real trick, the one nobody wants to hear, is that progress isn't made in big moments. It's made in the tiny ones, the little choices, the everyday actions that seem so small, so insignificant, that most people don't even bother. But the funny part, isn't it? People know what they need to do. They know they should eat better, work harder, stay consistent. They know they should take the steps, no matter how small. But they don't. Why? Because small steps aren't satisfying. They don't feel like progress. They don't come with a round of applause or some big reveal. They're just steps. One after another. And in a world obsessed with instant results, with overnight success stories, nobody wants to hear that progress is just a slow grind of boring, unseen effort. Most people give up long before they ever see results. They take a few steps forward, they don't see a big change, and they convince themselves it's not working. They say, this is pointless, this isn't enough. I need to do more. And then what happens? They burn out. They try to do too much, too fast, and when they can't keep up, they quit. They go right back to the beginning, waiting for the next spark of motivation to come along and push them forward again. A cycle a never-ending loop of starting and stopping, of getting excited and giving up. But the ones who win, the ones who actually change, they understand something different. They know that every step, no matter how small, adds up. They know that progress isn't about feeling like you're getting somewhere. It's about trusting that you are. It's about showing up day after day, even when it feels pointless, even when you can't see the finish line, even when nobody's watching and nobody cares, because that's the real secret, isn't it? The small steps that seem like nothing, they're everything. The tiny habits, the little routines, the choices that seem too small to matter, those are the things that shape a person. Those are the things that create real, lasting change. But most people, they're too impatient, too desperate for big results. They don't want the slow path, the quiet path. They want the shortcut, the hack, the easy way. And that's why they never get anywhere. They refuse to believe that small daily actions could ever be enough. But the truth, that's the only thing that ever has been. People love to pretend they're waiting for the right time, the perfect moment, the stars to align. They sit there convincing themselves that if they just wait a little longer, if they just hold on, everything will suddenly make sense and they'll finally be ready to move. But that's the trick, isn't it? That's the little lie they tell themselves so they don't have to face the truth. And the truth is there is no right time. There is no perfect moment. There is only now, right here, right in front of you. And every second you waste waiting is a second you'll never get back. See, people love to think they have forever, that they can just put things off until tomorrow, next week, next year. I'll start when I have more money. I'll start when I feel ready. I'll start when life calms down. Oh, but life doesn't calm down, does it? No, life keeps going. And while they sit there waiting for the right conditions, the days slip through their fingers like sand, one by one. And before they know it, years have gone by, and nothing has changed. And here's the best part. Deep down, they know they're lying to themselves. They know there's no magical day coming when everything will be easier. But they keep waiting anyway. Why? Because it's comfortable. Because waiting is safe. Because as long as they're waiting, they don't have to risk failing. They don't have to face the pain of trying, the discomfort of struggling, the fear of things not working out. They get to pretend they're just being smart, just being careful, just being responsible. But really, they're just scared. And fear is a funny little thing. It whispers in your ear, telling you to wait just a little longer, telling you that you're not ready, telling you that if you step forward now, you'll regret it. And people listen. Oh, do they listen? They treat their fear like some wise old friend, like some voice of reason. But fear doesn't know reason. Fear only knows how to keep you stuck. It knows that if it keeps you waiting long enough, you'll never move. You'll never take the leap. You'll stay exactly where you are, forever. And that's the real tragedy, isn't it? That most people don't even realize they've wasted their lives waiting for a moment that was never coming. They don't see it until it's too late, until the opportunities are gone, until the doors they could have walked through are closed, and then Then they start with the regrets. They look back at all the time they had, all the chances they ignored, and they wish, oh, if only I had started sooner. But by then, it's over. By then, time has made its choice for them. And the funniest part, the absolute best part, they could have started any time. They could have taken one step, just one, and everything would have been different. But instead, they chose to wait. They chose to let fear decide for them. And fear only knows how to steal. People love to talk about their potential. Oh, they love that word. Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? Potential. Sounds so important. Like it's this grand, untouchable thing that guarantees success one day. One day. That's the key part. See, people hold on to their potential like it's a safety net. Like as long as they have potential, they don't actually have to do anything. They can just sit back, relax, and wait for their greatness to kick in. But here's the joke. Potential means nothing. It's worthless. It's a pretty little dream, a comforting thought, a nice excuse for not actually doing the work. It doesn't push you. It just sits there, waiting. And that's the tragedy, isn't it? People waste their whole lives thinking about what they could be instead of becoming what they should be. They tell themselves, I'm not there yet, but one day I'll make it happen. But one day never comes because they're too busy daydreaming about what's possible instead of working with what's real. They think they'll get there eventually, as if time alone will do the work for them. But time doesn't give a damn about potential. Time just moves. And if you don't move with it, well, you get left behind. The best part, the real punchline, most people know they're wasting time. They know they're sitting on their hands waiting for a miracle, but they like the illusion. Because once you start, once you actually put yourself out there, you have to face the possibility that maybe, just maybe, you're not as special as you thought. That maybe all that potential was just a story you told yourself to feel important. And that's scary, isn't it? The idea that you might try your hardest and still but that's where the real ones are different. See, they don't care about potential. They care about action. They care about the work. They don't sit around waiting to feel ready. They don't spend their days fantasizing about what could be. They just move. They take what they have right now and they use it. No waiting, no hesitation, no excuses. And funny thing, that's when progress actually happens. Not in some imaginary future where everything is perfect, but right here, in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the doubt, in the middle of the imperfection. But most people, they'd rather wait. They'd rather protect the idea of being great than risk proving they're not. They'd rather hold on to potential like a security blanket, safe and untouched, instead of putting themselves in the ring where they might actually lose. But that's the game, isn't it? You either step up and take your shot, or you sit back and watch as someone else does. And all that potential you thought made you special, turns out it was just wasted space. People talk about how important it is to have a clear vision. You know, the kind of vision that lights up your entire life and shows you exactly where you're supposed to go, like a neon sign leading you to the land of success. They love that idea, don't they? That if you just have the right vision, if you just know what you want, everything will magically fall into place. But let's take a little stroll down reality lane shall we? Because the truth is, that vision is often just a pretty little picture in your head, something to keep you entertained while the world passes you by. See, everybody thinks that the hardest part is knowing where you're going, but that's not the hard part. The hard part is stepping out of your comfortable little box and actually doing something about it. That's where most people trip up. They have their visions, they have their dreams, they have all the plans in the world, but they never take the first step. They're so busy imagining how great it's going to be once they get there, they forget that the journey starts with a single move, no matter how small. It's easy to talk about your vision. It's easy to say, oh, I know what I want. You don't have to do anything to say that, do you? You can sit in your chair and just throw around the idea like it's some kind of magic formula. But vision without action is just that, a pretty picture in your head. It doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't get you closer to the life you want. It doesn't solve your problems or make the work easier. No, what gets you there is doing. It's the effort. It's the grind. It's the willingness to push through all the messy, uncomfortable stuff that comes between where you are and where you want to be. But here's the kicker. Most people won't do that. They won't put in the effort. They'll sit there with their vision, holding it like it's some kind of sacred thing, telling themselves that once the time is right, once they feel ready, they'll start working on it. But the time never comes. The right feeling, it never arrives. And so they sit, they wait, they tell themselves, I'll start tomorrow, or I'm just not in the right place yet. And the whole time, their vision just sits there, growing more distant with every second they waste. You see, vision is nothing if you don't have the guts to act on it. It's a nice idea, sure, a perfect dream. But a dream that stays in your head, that doesn't turn into action, is like a balloon floating up into the sky. Beautiful, but completely useless. You want something more than that, don't you? You want to do. You want to be something. And the only way to get there is to stop waiting around for some perfect moment and start making moves right now. It's not about waiting for everything to be perfect. It's not about having all the pieces in place before you take that first step. It's about seeing the goal, knowing that it's there, and walking towards it, no matter how many obstacles are in the way. And guess what? There will always be obstacles. Always. There will be times when it feels impossible. There will be days when you want to quit. But those are the moments that separate the people who talk about their vision from the ones who actually live it. Because the truth is, nobody is going to give you a map. Nobody is going to hand you a guidebook and say, here's the exact way to make your dream come true. You've got to create that path yourself, step by step, one decision at a time. And maybe you'll stumble, maybe you'll fall flat on your face a few times, but guess what? Every time you do, you learn, you grow, you figure out a way to do it better next time. And that's how you get closer to your vision. It's not by sitting back and waiting for the world to give you permission. It's by getting your hands dirty and just going for it, even when the odds aren't in your favor. You want success? You want your vision to become real? Then stop thinking that it'll just happen one day. It won't. You've got to work for it. You've got to fight for it. And the only way you're ever going to do that is by putting your vision to work. Get out of your own head. Stop thinking about how it could happen and start making it happen, because the more time you spend dreaming about what could be, the further away your vision gets. And you'll wake up one day and realize that while you were busy imagining the future, you forgot to live it. People always want to know the secret to success, the magic formula, the one little trick that's going to change their whole life overnight. They think there's a shortcut, a hidden path, a way to skip all the struggle and just arrive at greatness. That's funny, isn't it? Because deep down they know the truth. They just don't want to hear it. See, the truth is boring, it's ugly, it's not wrapped up in some shiny little package that makes you feel good. The truth is work. The truth is discipline. The truth is showing up day after day, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're tired, even when nobody is clapping for you, when nobody believes in you, when nobody cares if you succeed or fail. It's in those moments when it's just you against the weight of the world that you either break or build. People don't want to hear that. They want to hear that if they just think positively, if they just manifest the right energy, if they just wait long enough, success will fall into their lap like some kind of cosmic prize. But that's not how this game works. The game doesn't care how badly you want something. It doesn't care how much you believe in yourself. It cares about what you do. That's the joke, isn't it? The ones who get ahead aren't the smartest. They aren't the most talented. They aren't the ones with the best ideas. They're just the ones who keep showing up. The ones who do the work while everyone else is busy talking about doing the work. They don't need motivation. They don't wait to feel ready. They just go, and that's why they win. But most people, they'd rather wait. They'd rather sit around looking for the right moment, the perfect opportunity. They think that someday everything will just click, and they'll finally be able to move forward. But time doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Time just moves, and while they're sitting there, trapped in their own heads, looking for the perfect place to start, someone else is already 10 steps ahead. It's funny, really. People complain about not being where they want to be, but they spend all their time doing things that keep them exactly where they are. They say they want change, but they do nothing to create it. They're scared of the work, scared of the effort, scared of putting themselves in a position where they might actually fail, so they lie to themselves. They say they'll start tomorrow. They tell themselves they just need a little more time, a little more inspiration, a little more certainty, and while they're busy waiting, life moves on without them. The ones who make it, they're not the ones with the perfect plan. They're not the ones who waited for all the stars to align before they took their first step. They're the ones who moved, even when they didn't have all the answers, even when they were scared, even when they didn't feel ready. They understood something most people never do. Success isn't about waiting for the right moment. It's about creating the right moment. And guess what? It's going to be ugly. It's going to be messy. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have days where you feel like you're getting nowhere. But that's the price. That's the cost of getting what you want. And if you're not willing to pay it, well, there's a whole world full of people just like you, sitting around, waiting for their big break, waiting for their perfect moment, waiting for something that's never coming. The difference between winning and losing, it's not luck, it's not talent, it's not intelligence, it's persistence. It's having the nerve to keep going when everyone else quits. It's taking action when everyone else is waiting for permission. It's doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. And that's something most people will never understand, because they'd rather dream about being great than do what it actually takes to be great. People like to think life is fair. They walk around with this little idea in their heads that if they just do the right things, if they just follow the rules, then everything will work out the way it's supposed to. That's cute. Really it is. Because if that were true, then the hardest workers would always win, the kindest people would always be rewarded, and the ones who cheat, lie, and manipulate, well, they'd always get what's coming to them, right? But life doesn't work like that. It never did. It never will. You can do everything right and still lose. You can give your best effort and watch someone who barely tried walk away with the prize. You can be the smartest, the most talented, the most deserving, and none of that guarantees you anything. Because the truth is life isn't about fairness. It's about power. Who takes it, who holds it, who controls the game, while everyone else is still busy playing by the rules. And that's the joke, isn't it? Most people spend their whole lives waiting for things to make sense. They think that if they just keep working, if they just keep being good, then eventually everything will fall into place. They believe in balance, in justice, in karma, like the universe is some kind of well-oiled machine that always delivers exactly what's earned. But the ones who get ahead, they know better. They don't waste time hoping the world will be fair. They don't sit around waiting for things to magically work out. They see the game for what it really is. You ever notice how the ones at the top don't work the hardest? They don't break their backs, they don't follow the same rules as everyone else, because they know the rules were never meant to serve them. The rules are for the ones at the bottom, the ones who still think that playing fair is going to get them somewhere, the ones who wake up every day, put their heads down, and do exactly what they're told, while someone else collects all the rewards. It's not about effort. It's about strategy. It's about knowing when to move, when to wait, when to strike. The people who win, they don't waste time complaining about how things should be. They don't cry about how unfair the world is. They accept it, they embrace it, and then they figure out how to use it to their advantage. But most people don't want to hear that. They want to believe that if they just stay on the right path, if they just keep grinding, if they just trust the process, then eventually they'll get their reward. And when they don't, when they realize that life doesn't work that way, they get angry, they get bitter, they start blaming everyone but themselves, because the truth is too much for them to handle. The truth is the world doesn't care about their hard work. It doesn't care about their sacrifices. It doesn't care about how much they deserve success. The world only cares about results. The ones who win in this life, they don't waste their energy trying to make sense of things. They don't sit around asking, why is this happening to me? They don't wait for the world to change. They adapt. They find the loopholes. They figure out what actually works, not what should work, and then they move. They don't ask for permission. They don't wait for approval. They take what they need and they keep going. And the rest, they just sit there, confused, frustrated, wondering why nothing ever goes their way. They'll keep following the rules. They'll keep playing nice. They'll keep waiting for life to reward them for being good people. And they'll keep losing again.